Could Manuel Neuer have saved Constantinople in 1453? To figure this out, we need to look at three categories. A. What are Neuer's qualifications? B. Why Constantinople fell? And C. How Neuer would prevent it. First, Category A. What are Neuer's qualifications? World Cup winner in 2014, 2 Champions Leagues, a pile of German league titles, voted the best goalkeeper on the planet more times than anyone else of his generation. And none of that matters here. In a city surrounded by 80,000 men, nobody cares how many Champions Leagues you've won. What matters is 3 other things. 1. The space he covers. 2. The fact that he rebuilt his own position. 3. He's the last line and he's still standing there. 1. The space. The best example is Germany against Algeria in the round of 16 at the 2014 World Cup. In that match, Neuer touched the ball 59 times, and 21 of those touches were outside his own box. At one point, he came sliding in 30 yards from his own goal to take the ball off the Algerian striker's foot before he could get there. That is not how goalkeepers played. A goalkeeper stayed on his line and waited for the shot. Neuer decided the danger shouldn't reach him and started going to the danger instead. 2. He's the last line, and he's still there years later. Manuel Neuer is 40 years old. He had already retired from the German national team in 2024, and he came out of retirement to play the 2026 World Cup, his 5th, as the undisputed number 1. When everything in front of you fails, the goalkeeper is what's left, and he is still what's left, 2 decades after he started. 3. He rebuilt his own position. And this is the most important point in the video. For almost 100 years, goalkeepers did one thing: stop shots inside the box. But football kept changing. Defensive lines pushed higher, teams started playing with the back line way up the pitch, and that left an enormous space between the defenders and the goal that nobody was covering. Neuer didn't wait for someone else to solve it. He solved it by changing how his position was played. And here's the detail that matters. He didn't do it because he was losing. He did it because he saw the method was going to fail before he did. Category B. Why did Constantinople fall? Constantinople was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire and the most heavily fortified city in the world. The Theodosian Walls held off invader after invader for more than 1,000 years. Nobody had ever taken that city. In April of 1453, Mehmed the Second began the siege. 53 days later, on the 29th of May, the city fell. The last emperor, Constantine XI, died fighting. And it fell for 3 reasons. 1. Too few people for far too much space. Constantine could gather somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 men to defend around 20 kilometers of wall. On the other side, there were between 60,000 and 80,000 Ottomans and a fleet of over 100 ships, roughly 10 to 1. 2. The technology overtook the method. Mehmed brought enormous cannon. The biggest one was around 8 meters long and fired stone balls weighing 270 kilos. It was so heavy it needed teams of oxen to drag it into place, and it could only fire a few times a day because it had to cool down. And even so, for the first time in 1,000 years, the wall was being destroyed faster than the defenders could rebuild it. The defensive system that had worked for a millennium simply stopped working, and there was no plan B. 3. The unlocked gate. According to the accounts from the time, a small side gate called the Kirkaporta was found unbarred. The Ottomans poured through it and raised their banners on the towers above. That was the turning point of the final assault. And to make it worse, the help never came. The West promised support and sent nobody. The city fought alone. So here's what actually happened there. 1,000 years of unbeaten wall, a defensive system nobody ever updated, and in the end, somebody forgot to lock a door. Now, Category C, the most important part. How would Neuer prevent this? And there are 3 reasons. 1. The space. 7,000 men for 20 kilometers of wall is impossible to cover the traditional way, standing still, waiting for the attack to arrive at every single point. And that is exactly the problem Neuer solved in football. Bayern and Germany played with the defensive line way up the pitch, and that left an enormous void behind it. Nobody could cover that. He covered it by going to the danger instead of waiting for the danger to come to him. 21 touches outside his box in a World Cup match. 30 yards off his own line to win a ball. Neuer doesn't defend the space you can defend. He defends the space that needs defending. 2. The method that got old. And this is where the man meets the city. Constantinople fell because it was defending the same way it had for 1,000 years, while the world around it changed. The cannon arrived, the wall became obsolete overnight, and nobody had another plan. Manuel Neuer is literally the man who did the opposite. He looked at a position that had worked the same way for 100 years, and he rewrote it before anyone forced him to. Not because he was losing, because he saw it was going to stop working. A man who changes his own method before it becomes useless does not leave an entire city defending with the tactics of 1200 against the cannon of 1453. 3. The gate. And if the wall gets breached anyway, this is where he exists. The Cerco Porta was the last place anyone should have been paying attention to, and there was nobody there. That's the empty net. That's the ball that got past everyone. Neuer built his entire career on being what's left when everything in front of him fails. And at 40 years old, after already retiring from the national team once, he came back specifically to keep being that. So, could Manuel Neuer have saved Constantinople in 1453? Overall, in consensus, the answer is absolutely yes. Constantinople fell because it had too few people for too much space, because of a defensive method nobody had updated in 1,000 years, and because of a gate that was left unlocked. Neuer covers, on his own, the space nobody thinks can be covered. He is the only man in football who rewrote his own position before it broke, and he spent 20 years being the last line when everything in front of him failed. And look at what that actually means. Constantinople didn't fall for lack of courage, and it didn't fall for lack of walls. It fell because it defended the same way for 1,000 years, and nobody ever asked whether that still worked. Manuel Neuer is the one man who asked that question about his own position, and answered it himself before he had to. And this is why, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Manuel Neuer would have saved Constantinople. So tell me in the comments, which other player would you put on that wall? If you enjoyed this one, drop a like and subscribe. It's what gets videos like this in front of more people. See you next time.